Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, IWT proudly brings to you its top 10 wrestlers of the UK! I am your host, Sean Specs from Generation Specs on YouTube, and I'd like to thank all who voted. And let's get this kicked off with our number 10, Dave Taylor, a third generation wrestler who was trained by his father Eric Taylor. He isn't much remembered for his brief time in WWE as an active wrestler, but it is because of him and Regal that we got to see Drew McIntyre in a brief stable on SmackDown. Dave is probably best remembered for his time in WCW in the Blue Blood stable, alongside Regal and Bobby Eaton. During the past 10 years or so, he's had limited in-ring time and has mostly been acting as trainer and backstage agent in WWE and the defunct Deep South for wrestling. He's also been used briefly as a trainer in OVW, back when it was owned by WWE, and then in FCW. I'll always remember him as a true brawler, much like Regal. The old school British beatdown mentality is something very much lacking in today's TV wrestling shows. His last recorded match took place in 2009 on Ring of Honor's Honor Takes Center Stage pay-per-view. He lost to Colt Cabana. He then wrestled one match in a small indie show in the UK for New Generation Wrestling and has since been unofficially retired. Number 9 is a man who I feel, as do most, that deserves a real push. He's the former Chosen One, and I'm sure he will always be the Chosen One. Of course, I'm talking about the one, the only, Drew McIntyre. He began training from the age of 15 in England, before moving back to Scotland to begin his career. Before long, he became a regular in British Championship Wrestling, using the gimmick The Drew Galloway. He won their Heavyweight Championship twice, along with the Heavyweight Championship of Insane Championship Wrestling. He also found success abroad in Irish Whip Wrestling, winning their top title. During this time, he completed an undergraduate degree in criminology. Some of his well-known matches were against the likes of Stu Sanders, aka Wade Barrett, and Sheamus O'Shaughnessy, now known simply as Sheamus. I personally feel like Drew is severely underrated as a wrestler, and the 3MB gimmick really does him no favours whatsoever, other than getting him on TV. But get that man a title! Alright, moving on. Our number 8 is a true old school legend of the ring. Not many non-UK people will know who he is, but to us Brits, he was pretty much the British Bruno Sammartino. At number 8 is Mick McManus. The role he played was mostly a heeled European wrestler, and often went by the nicknames The Man You Love to Hate, Rugged South London Tough Guy, and the Dulwich Destroyer. He's a true old school heel, and he would really test the limits of the rules, which were a lot more strict back then. He was also well known for using short-range forearm jabs in matches. He became famous for his trademark black trunks and crop black hair with his catchphrase, "Not the ears, not the ears!" McManus won his first wrestling title, the British Welterweight Championship, in 1949 by defeating Eddie Capelli for the vacant championship. After McManus retired from active wrestling in 1982, he advised London Weekend Television until professional wrestling was taken off the air in 1988. He later worked in public relations, owned by the Royal Hotel pub, in Stoughton, Guildford in Surrey, which is around London, and he became a connoisseur of antique porcelain. He also continued to advise professional wrestling promoters. McManus had made more television appearances than any other British wrestler in a televised career that spanned 26 years before his death on 22nd of May 2013. He was 93. Number 7 is the man known for his wrist hold, shaky head gesture all over the world. He is Doug Williams. Williams studied judo from the age of 11. Using this as his background, he began training to become a professional wrestler at 16. At 19, he started working with NWA UK Hammerlock and became an active wrestler on the roster until the mid-1990s, before moving to FWA in 2001. While competing in FWA's King of England tournament, Williams wrestled and won a match against Eddie Guerrero. Williams would also go on to become the promotion's top champion on 2 occasions. He's probably best known for his time in TNA, which got him big exposure and a lot of new fans. He was on WrestleTalk TV not so long ago, which is a wrestling chat show here in the UK, and he said the worst thing to happen to him in TNA was having a match with Hernandez. More accurately, a border toss that could have ended his career and nearly broke his neck. Luckily it didn't. He also spent a lot of time in Ring of Honor, wrestling the likes of Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Austin Aries, Chris Sabin, Low-Ki, and many more. WWE did give him a tryout dark match, which I was lucky enough to see. It was against Carlito. He did get a lot of offense in, and it was a very good match. Weirdest thing was that no one seemed to actually see him go to the ring. He just was there, randomly. Some say, upon that very day, Doug Williams used his teleporter to shock and stun the audience. Others, however, say he just went to the ring during a blackout when they were distracting us with a random Tron video. Who knows? At current time, he helps train talent at OVW and has stated that he is pretty much retired from in-ring competition. Drop-kicking his way into our top 10 at number 6. It's former UK gladiator Oblivion, known in TNA as Magnus. He is getting a great push in the Bound for Glory series currently, although that may be slowing down a bit, and let's hope he doesn't just job the rest of the matches. But let's take a look back on how he got to where he is today. After becoming proficient in swimming and tennis, Nick Aldis, which is his real name, began bodybuilding, which ultimately led to his training to be a professional wrestler. After beginning his training at the age of 16, he made his professional debut in 2005, where he competed against Doug Williams, who we've just been talking about, if you remember that far back. It seems like years ago. In a highly contested 2 out of 3 falls match, which Aldis lost 2 falls to 1. Early title matches included a DAM Promotions event which he teamed up with Bash. Look him up if you don't know who he is, he's quite a competitor. To take on the DAM, which I like to call DAM. Yeah, the DAM. The Tag Team Champions, Big Dave and The Bulk for the titles. He also went up against Ash for the LDN Championship at Summit Wrestling. He would lose both matches, of course. Anyway, in 2007 he would face the WAW British Heavyweight Champion Brett Meadows for the title, and lost. His last match before joining TNA was a win against Marty Scurll, who you may remember from British Boot Camp. During his time in England, he wrestled primarily at Joint Promotions, All-Star Wrestling and World Association of Wrestling. His first exposure in TNA came under the modern-day Gladiator gimmick called Brutus Magnus. It was a gimmick that very quickly seemed to get dropped when the British invasion started with Doug Williams. Then once that ended, he was just simply known as Magnus. Interesting note here, he is featured in Mickie James's new music video, alongside former WWE Women's Champion Trish Stratus. Trish chick kicks him. It's pretty cool. One of his most random alliances was with Samoa Joe, which turned Magnus face and proved to be a very good and interesting team that did go on to win the TNA tag titles as well as the GHC tag titles in Pro Wrestling Noah. He also won the world title in Ring Ka King in India, and of course right now he's a member of the new Main Event Mafia. What does the future hold for young Nick Aldis? We'll have to wait and see. Calling it right down the middle at number 5 is Nigel McGuinness. Born in London, grew up in Staplehurst, Kent, McGuinness, whose real name is Stephen Hayworth, was a wrestling fan from the age of 12, particularly enjoying the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs. He attended SummerSlam 92 while wearing Ultimate Warrior face paint, After attending Les University, Hayworth relocated to America in the 1990s in order to attend Kent State University and graduated in 1997 with a degree in chemistry. One of his most recognisable wrestling looks was when he had bleach blonde spiky hair when he had the gimmick of a Billy Idol punk rock / football hooligan. His first major title win occurred when he won the HWA Heavyweight Championship in September 6, 2003 in Batavia, Ohio, defeating Chad Collier. He kept the title for about 4 months before dropping it, and shortly after moving to Ring of Honor, where he formed a short-lived team with Colt Cabana. And then they feuded. He then feuded with Samoa Joe, which ended up in him winning the ROH Pure title. During his Pure Championship run, McGuinness regularly carried an iron, which was decorated with a Union Jack, to ringside. When asked, the typical story given was that a group of men once broke into his home to attack him and he was unable to defend himself. So he grabbed the iron and defended himself with that. In reality, he began carrying the iron after his girlfriend's mother asked him why some wrestlers carried weapons to ringside, and then inquired as to whether anyone has ever carried an iron before. So he did. He would often use the iron as a weapon to win his matches. One of his most viewed rivalries whilst in Ring of Honor was against Chris Hero, who had dubbed himself the best pure wrestler in ROH. On June 23rd, McGuinness defeated Hero in a 30-minute time limit match, but Hero came back on August 10th and defeated McGuinness with help from his agent Larry Sweeney, rest in peace, and the Sweet and Sour Incorporated, in a match contested under pure wrestling rules. Fast forward a few years, he ended up in TNA under the name Desmond Wolfe, with his valet by the name of Chelsea. His big feud was with Kurt Angle, who McGuinness defeated in what is seen to be the biggest non-title win of his career. After that, he got put into the tag team division and had angles with Fortune, as well as a small tag team with Magnus. Not much really happened after this. After a brief spell as Explosion Commissioner, he departed from TNA and went back to Ring of Honor to work as a colour commentator. In December 2012, McGuinness released a documentary titled The Last of McGuinness on his final days as an in-ring performer, during which he revealed that WWE had rescinded his contract after feeling an old biceps injury needed surgery, while his in-ring career in TNA ended after contracting hepatitis B during his time there. In late May 2013, McGuinness toured the UK with a shorter final cut of his documentary to overwhelming positive reviews and has become an advocate for hepatitis B vaccination and an end to the use of intentional blood loss in wrestling. I do recommend checking out his DVD, by the way. Anyone who loves wrestling documentaries and just real true wrestling storytelling, definitely worth checking out. Knocking out the competition at number 4 with the Barrett Barrage is, of course, Mason Ryan. Just kidding! It's Preston's self-made champion and former bare-knuckle fighter, Wade Barrett. Much like Sheamus and Drew, Wade started out in small British and Irish wrestling promotions and frequently teaming and feuding with both. Going by the name Stu Sanders, he developed quite a loyal following for his hard-hitting, old-school appeal to the classic British brawlers of the past. Barrett was inspired by his idol, Davey Boy Smith, aka the British Bulldog, to become a professional wrestler and named the WWF Intercontinental Championship match in the main event of SummerSlam 92 between him and Bret Hart, another childhood hero of his, as his all-time favourite match. He gained a degree in marine biology from the University of Liverpool, working in a science laboratory as a recruitment consultant at the Venn Group's London office. Whilst training to become a wrestler, he competed in a match dubbed by the bare-knuckle underworld as the Battle of Buddha, in which he defeated a reputable opponent for a big cash prize. Afterwards, as he walked through an alleyway in search of a taxi to the airport, he was stabbed with an 8-inch blade by someone who attempted to steal the cash. He has refused to elaborate on the incident for legal reasons, but the assailant incurred serious injuries and Barrett escaped with the cash despite significant blood loss. The attack left him with a 12-inch scar that stretches from the upper back to halfway down his right tricep. If you look carefully when he's going to the ring, unless he's got his little jacket on, you can actually see it. He also took some punches that left him with a disfigured nose, which is again something you can sort of see. He has expressed no regret over that period of his life. He incorporated his bare-knuckle career into his WWE gimmick at the request of Hall of Famer Dusty Rhodes, being introduced to the WWE crowd as a European bare-knuckle champion who had fought on the streets of England and Europe. His wrestling move is named after a site of many of his fights in Europe. Like many current WWE wrestlers, Barrett made several appearances as security guards, and him and Sheamus were used a few times while WWE travelled to Manchester between 2005 and 2007. After a couple tryout matches under the name Stu Sanders, he was signed to OVW to develop his WWE skills. He also made several appearances in SCW before getting called up as part of the first season of NXT. You know, before NXT became awesome, and not some weird talent/fitness show. From there, we all know what happened. He led the Nexus, was part of the core, was supposed to be heading for a world title run before breaking his arm at the Rumble that year. And since then, he hasn't done a huge amount other than a couple reigns as IC champion. I feel he deserves more, so I hope he has his world title run in the near future, because he definitely deserves it. Taking the number 3 spot is a guy whose career and life ended all too soon. I'm talking about Davey Boy Smith, aka the British Bulldog. I don't know why I did it in that accent, never mind. Davey Boy Smith started competing on ITV's World of Sport when he was just 15, wrestling under the name Young David with his slightly older cousin Tom Billington, aka the Dynamite Kid. His first televised match, broadcast the 2nd of September 1978, saw him draw with 1 pin each between himself and Bernie Wright. He would wrestle there for 4.5 years until February 1983, with his final match again being against Wright, this time winning 2 pinfalls to 1. In World of Sport he wrestled, among others, Dave Finlay, Blackjack Mulligan and Marty Jones, as well as teaming with Big Daddy. He also had a series of matches with Jim Breaks, for whom he won the British Welterweight Championship in 1979 by 2 falls to 1 submission. The belt was held up due to the match's disputed finish. He was then spotted by Bruce Hart, scouting talent in the UK, and travelled to Canada to wrestle for Stu Hart and his cousin. Stu Hart and Roy Wood trained Smith further in his dungeon, and Smith became a key wrestler in Hart's promotion, Stampede Wrestling. During his time in Stampede, Smith began a feud with Dynamite Kid, and on 9th of July 1982, he won his first title when he defeated the Dynamite Kid for the Stampede British Commonwealth Mid-Heavyweight title. That's not easy to say. In 1983, Smith debuted in New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he became involved in a 3-way feud with Dynamite Kid and the Cobra, aka George Takano, over the NWA Junior Heavyweight title. On the 7th of February 1984, a 3-way one-night tournament was held, and the Dynamite Kid won the tournament by defeating Smith via countout and the Cobra by pinfall. After the tournament, Smith and Dynamite formed a tag team in both New Japan and in Stampede, known, of course, as the British Bulldogs. In 1984, the Bulldogs made a shocking move by jumping to New Japan's rival, All Japan Pro Wrestling. Just before the start of All Japan's annual tag team tournament, the Bulldogs made a nice showing, which drew the interest of the World Wrestling Federation. His biggest win in WWE was defeating Bret Hart, of course, at SummerSlam in the UK for the IC title. It's the only title that has actually changed hands in the UK on a proper pay-per-view. I don't think the Hardcore title really counts because that changed hands willy-nilly. His wife Diane was watching from the front row and came in the ring to raise his hand once he'd won that title. The crowd were insanely happy at what had occurred, and in 1993 he spent some time in WCW feuding with Sid, Vader and finding a short-term tag partner in Sting. Smith returned to the WWE several
times over the past few years, each time looking far bigger, and it became highly obvious that steroid abuse was getting out of his control. His last WWE run is very forgettable and focused more over the hardcore title and getting rock bottomed into a pile of dog poo. Vince grew hugely concerned with his health and requested him go to rehab. He was soon released from his contract and sadly died on 18th of May 2002 at the age of 39 after suffering a heart attack while on vacation in Invermere, British Columbia with his girlfriend Andrea Hart, his former brother-in-law's Bruce Hart's ex-wife. An autopsy revealed that the past anabolic steroid use may have played a part in his death. However, no certain reason was found. Bruce Hart claimed Davey paid the price with steroid cocktails and human growth hormones. Before his death, Smith had been training with the intent of resuming his career and had wrestled in 3 tag matches with his son Harry Smith the previous weekend. Just missing out on this 10-man rumble of UK goodness is the man formerly known as the Belfast Bruiser in WCW, but you may know him as Fit Finlay, Dave Finlay, or just simply Finlay. But the man who loves to fight is our number 2. Finlay's first match was for his father's promotion in Glyn in 1974, when he filled in for a wrestler who no-showed. He began wrestling on a full-time basis in Carrickfergus and throughout Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland for the next 4 years before moving to England in 1978. In England he wrestled for various companies under the Joint Promotions banner. Finlay defeated Alan Kilby in June 9th, 1982 to win his first title, the Joint Promotions British Heavy Middleweight Championship. Crazy name for a title. At this time, Finlay's then-wife Princess Paula became his manager. He then won a tournament to crown a new British Light Heavyweight Champion and fill the vacant position, defeating Ringo Rigby in the finals. In 1995 he became a champion at the top of the weight range when he won All-Stars British Heavyweight Championship. Finlay often competed on ITV's World of Sport programme as David Fit Finlay and had many matches against the American Dream Steve Adonis, which I'm not sure Dusty Rhodes possibly even knew about. 2 American Dreams. During this time, Finlay also began to work in Japan, then in Germany and Austria for European promotion Catch Wrestling Association. After losing the All-Star Championship to Dave Taylor, Finlay began to focus more on CWA, winning many of their championships. He then went on to WCW, competing in mostly hardcore style matches as the Belfast Bruiser. Big brown curly mullet and all. I was watching the Best of Nitro and there is actually a car park brawl he had with Regal on there. It gets pretty extreme. It's worth seeing, definitely. That whole DVD is worth seeing. I do have a big love for WCW. After a hiatus off WCW television, he abandoned the Belfast Brawler persona and returned under the name Fit Finlay, while sporting a short bleach blonde haircut. He was given a push upon his return, which culminated in winning the World Television Championship on May 4th, 1998 after pinning Booker T on Nitro, thus setting off a 3-way feud with Booker and Chris Benoit. At Bash of the Beach 99 he won a Junkyard Invitational involving Cyclope, Jerry Flynn, Johnny Grunge, Sandman, Horace Hogan, Brian Knobbs, Hugh Morris, La Parker, Lord Steven Regal, Rocco Rock, Silver King, Squire Dave Taylor and Mikey Whipwreck, winning a hardcore trophy. He legitimately suffered a badly lacerated nerve in his leg during a hardcore match at a house show in Jackson, Mississippi, in July 1999, which nearly cost him the use of his leg. As he was wrestling Brian Knobbs, he was thrown into a table and the corner of the ring, which caused it to shatter, and the shards just cut into his leg. He managed to regain the use of his limb and came back later in the year, but by that point, all momentum he had from the Junkyard Invitational win was lost. In 2000, Finlay formed a trio of hardcore soldiers with Brian Knobbs and Al Green. They feuded with Vampiro, and the feud included a match between Finlay and Vampiro at Uncensored, which marked Finlay's last appearance on a WCW pay-per-view. His final match in WCW was at the German House Show in November 2000, losing to Norman Smiley in a hardcore match. A few years later, Finlay debuted as a wrestler in WWE after working many years as an agent. He won the US title and introduced us to someone who is probably one of the most annoying people on TV apart from The Miz, Hornswoggle. And I do like Miz, but when he does that toothy smile, I just want to punch him in it. Anyway, 2010, Finlay became a full-time trainer and agent. Finlay was released in March 2011 for authorising the interruption of the American national anthem by The Miz during a house show, which offended many, including National Guard members who were in attendance. Finlay stated that his intention was to intensify the audience dislike of The Miz in preparation for the latter's WrestleMania main event appearance. I don't think Miz needed any help to be more disliked, to be fair. He takes full responsibility for his dismissal. He has since returned and now works backstage as an agent once again. And now it's time to finally reveal who has scooped up the gold, who has climbed that ladder and took the top spot. It should come to no surprise to everyone who's voted. He may not have ever won the big one, but he's surely number one in all our hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, none other than William Regal. I have so much respect for this guy. He's not had an easy life. We all know about his drug and alcohol issues, so I'm not really going to include that into what I'm saying. But everything he has accomplished since very early age has been very interesting to hear about. Much like Barrett, he's competed in fights when younger. He's also a big fan of lizards and has several pets at home, including an iguana. He's another guy that came into light on the World of Sport Wrestling show. There's a lot of videos of him on YouTube, which I do recommend seeing. He's then progressed on touring around the world in countries such as Germany, South Africa, before he got called up to WCW in 1993. And after leaving WCW, he joined the WWE and he became commissioner. More recently, he has been general manager of Raw, the 2008 King of the Ring, and was briefly the official match coordinator of NXT Redemption in 2011. He is currently a colour commentator on NXT. He is also known for being the first wrestler to beat CM Punk by submission. Take note of that. He beat CM Punk by submission. First ever to do that. So when he started in WCW as Steve Regal, he was a face. He then became a villain, Lord Steven Regal, in the summer of '93, claiming descent from William the Conqueror. At times arrogantly charming in this persona, one of his memorable statements to a post-match interview was, "Do you know what my New Year's resolution is going to be? To wake up half an hour earlier so I can hate you more." And that's something I always loved about him. Just the things he would say, so clever, yet, I don't know, that element of darkness, which is awesome. They did sort of turn him into a comedy character later on when he was the WWE commissioner, but you also saw a very nasty, aggressive side of him as well. His initial appearance in WWE was on 29th of June 1998, Raw is War, in which he defeated Droz via submission with the Regal stretch. After featuring one more match against Tiger Ali Singh at Penn State in Pennsylvania, he was sent to a training camp run by Dory Funk Jr. in order to get him into shape. On his last day in a match against Rhino, Regal twisted his ankle. Upon returning home, he aggravated this injury, falling in his bathroom, breaking his ankle and leg. Nasty. It was during this time that he developed his addiction to painkillers and was not seen on WWE television until he returned that fall with the Real Man's Man gimmick, the Builder Lumberjack style stuff. And guess who created that? Yes, Vince Russo. And that was based on the image of the Brawny Man. All his vignettes showed him doing manly things like chopping wood, shaving with a straight razor, squeezing his own orange juice, After he made his full-time debut in October 98, he faced X-Pac in the opening round of a tournament for the vacant WWE Championship at the Survivor Series, ending in a double countout and thus eliminating both men from the tournament. Regal then began to feud with the Godfather. He was taken off television soon after, and subsequently checking into rehab in January 99. He was then released from the WWE in April. He then briefly returned to WCW as Lord Steven Regal. In late February 2000, Regal lost a career versus career match against Jim Duggan on Saturday night for the World Television Championship, which was in order to explain Regal's release from the company. He was once again hired by WWE and sent to development territory Memphis Championship Wrestling, just for a short time. And after a match with Chris Benoit at the 3rd annual Brian Pillman Memorial Show, he was brought up to the main roster and re-debuted 18th of September, Raw is War. His new character was Stephen William Regal, which was then obviously shortened to just William Regal, a stereotypical English snob, harkening back to his WCW character as a villain. Regal had much more success. He won the European Championship. He later became an on-screen commissioner and self-proclaimed Goodwill Ambassador of the WWE, and was given a comedy sidekick in Tajiri. During his WCW/ECW Alliance storyline, he became a villain by costing Kurt Angle the WWE Championship and joining the Alliance. He was fired as commissioner by Linda McMahon, but Shane McMahon, who was the owner of WCW, hired him as the Alliance commissioner. After the Alliance was defeated at Survivor Series in November 2001, he was forced to become the first member of a very famous club, the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club, and by kissing Vince's bum, he kept his job. This time around he had much more success, capturing the Intercontinental Championship on several occasions, winning King of the Ring, as I said earlier. He's probably one of the best old school true legends of the ring to never win a world title, and that is a huge shame. He's doing a great job on commentary, but every time he has a match, which it doesn't happen often, but when it does, crowd give him the respect he very much deserves, and I wholeheartedly would love to thank him. If I ever met him, I would thank him for all his hard work and entertainment he has shown and provided through years of me watching wrestling. And that's it. This would have taken a long time to do if I was able to say all I wanted to say, and I hope you enjoyed just a brief history lesson on everyone involved in the list. I did have to look up some stuff on Wikipedia, but who cares? And thank you for voting, watching, and being a part of the intelligent wrestling talk community. And remember, there's only one way to talk about wrestling: intelligently. Have a nice day.